Hi, my name is Tomantos, and today we're going to talk about some basics, when it comes to camera angles and framing. The full shot or full body shot includes the feet in the frame. For this type of shot, remember to never cut off just the feet. In fact, it's bad practice to cut off your subject at your knees and below. It may look like you basically did it unintentionally or by mistake, like you can see here. It also just looks awkward when the person's legs are cut off below the knees. Now, this in fact is not a rule by any means. In fact, I don't really think there are any rules in film. But it's just bad practice. If you're gonna frame your subject like this, then you better have a good reason for it. Otherwise, it will just confuse your audience, and it will just simply look like you don't know what you're doing. So basically, for a full body shot, you should stick to something like this. Next shot is a medium full shot. That's when you go in a bit closer, and it's usually also when you cut off your subject somewhere in between the knees and the waist. Once you frame up above basically the waist area, that's called a medium shot. After that, we move in for a close shot. That frames from around the breast area and up. And then this here is a close-up, which basically frames mainly just the subject's head. Once you move in even closer, where you start to cut off the forehead or the chin, that's usually referred to as an extreme close-up. Even once you move in to just frame the eyes, for example. Now, what you gotta remember is that there is no standard by which to go when naming these type of shots. These are simply the names that I use. There are others out there that use different names. What's important is that you know what type of shots you want to get. So, when you're planning your shots or doing your storyboards, you always use the same names for the shot types. So you basically don't end up confusing yourself later on down the road when you go back to look at your notes or your storyboards. Next, we'll talk about the types of shots or angles, like over the shoulder or a two shot. These are most commonly used in a scene where two characters are talking to each other. These shots refer more to the angle than what the exact framing is. For example, you can have a close-up over the shoulder, or a medium over the shoulder, like you see here. And you can even go to a full body over the shoulder. Same goes for the two shot. Here we have a full body two shot, and then a medium two shot, and then a close-up two shot. Or you can also have a 3 or 4 shot or whatever. Depends on how many characters you have in your shot. Other shot types you might hear about are an insert or a cutaway, which is basically a close-up on a part of the scene, or it could be a POV of one of the characters, maybe seeing basically a certain detail in that scene, like we see here, where one of the characters passes the car keys to the other. And many times people ask me what size lens should they use to get, for example, a good medium shot. And really, there is no one correct answer. The types of shots or the framing really have nothing to do with the lens. For example, you can have a medium shot that's shot using a wide-angle lens, such as this 16mm Canon lens that I'm using here. Or you can have a medium shot that's shot using a 50mm lens. Same if you use 100mm or even a 300mm telephoto lens. They all produce medium shots. But of course, each of those lenses gives that shot a different look and effect. The framing doesn't change, it's just the perspective. So remember that shot framing has nothing to do with the lens size. And the only way you'll ever really know what type of lens to use in your scenario is once you have a lot of experience going out there and filming. Just trying out different types of lenses and experimenting. Then, afterwards you should come home and compare what kind of effects you got using various lenses on different types of shots. Because there's virtually an infinite amount of effects that you can get when you're mixing up different types of framing, shot types, angles, and lenses. For example, let's take a close-up and do a few versions of it and see what kind of effects we can get. If we were to use a mid-size lens, such as this 50mm, then you would get something like this, an average type of kind of looking shot. But for example, if you're filming, let's say, a comedy and you wanted to show a person, in a funny way, then it might be better to go in real close and use a wide angle such as the 16mm lens, which will make your subject's features look a bit distorted or exaggerated. It's not actually the lens that makes your subject look that way, but your relative position to the subject. Basically, the closer you move to your subject, the more dramatic the perspective will be. But obviously, you gotta use a wide angle lens when shooting this close. Right now, we're about 2 feet away from the subject. Now, if we were to use a 50mm lens at that same distance, then the perspective doesn't change, but the framing obviously will, because we're basically just zooming in. So all you end up seeing is this. It would be the same if we look at this shot that we got using a 16mm lens and then digitally zoomed in. The only difference being that the depth of field would be the same as the 16mm lens, and of course we end up losing a lot of the resolution, which is why we use different lenses. Or if you're using a camera that doesn't have interchangeable lenses, then you would simply zoom in or zoom out. Now let's take a look at a full body shot. To get it with a 16mm lens, we have to move away from the subject a few more feet. If you were to move away from your subject to about 250 feet, then this wide angle might be good if you're trying to get, let's say, a wide shot of the location, because your subject is so small that it's really hard to even see him. So that's when you want to use a long lens, such as this 300mm, to basically zoom in. Now, when you're this far away, that's when the subjects will look more flat and less exaggerated, since you're seeing all the features from pretty much the same perspective. It will also bring other surrounding objects, such as this mailbox that we have there in the background, closer to our main subject. Whereas if we were, a bit closer and let's say using a 50mm lens, it looks like that mailbox is a lot further away. They're both the same types of shots, a full body shot, but what changes now is our relative position to the subject. And since with the 300mm lens, we have to move away so much further and then zoom in optically, we end up also zooming in on the mailbox, which is why it makes it look like it's basically a lot closer to our subject than in, for example, you can see in this full body shot that we got using a 50mm lens. So anyway, next time you're wondering what lens you should use in your setting, just simply go out there with your camera, test out different lenses, experiment, and above all, just have fun, because that's really the best way to learn. I hope this video helped to answer some of your questions, and I'll see you guys later.